All right, and good morning. It is December the 14th, and welcome to the official launch of PlanDoTrack Workbook and Planner. I'm Jennifer Britton, and I'm the author of several books, including today's latest book. Just going to reach outside the camera for a minute, but PlanDoTrack. It is officially available today on Amazon. And it's geared primarily for virtual professionals of all stripes. Maybe you are working remote and you're leading a team that is across the continent or the globe. Perhaps you are cultivating up a virtual side gig, or maybe you are an entrepreneur that works solo and works with clients outside of your physical location. So I really am pleased today to be introducing PlanDoTrack to the world. As I've been saying recently, it's sort of our newest member of the family out of many, many different publications. It's actually stemmed out of a book that was launched a few months ago called The Coaching Business Builder. And for anyone who is a coach, you'll notice that very, very similar in terms of a lot of the components. As I brought Coaching Business Builder out into the marketplace, which is part planner, part workbook, a lot of virtual professionals got their hands on it and said, this is great, and I'm not a coach, but I'd love something that could support me on my own personal development, my own business development, and also having a planning component. So you'll notice that most sections are very similar in both books, except for section 1, which is all about business foundations as it relates to a virtual business or team. So welcome, and I want to direct you to the different websites that exist. For PlanDoTrack, it's simply found at PlanDoTrack.com, or if you are a coach and you found your way here, do check out CoachingBusinessBuilder.com. There is a lot of interweave between these two areas because the main difference is the tools are the same, our focus may be slightly different, but I think you'll really find, as I like to say with our tagline, daily steps plus consistent action equals momentum. And that's so important in today's hypercharged world. We are actually day 7 into a 14-day series of planning, doing, and tracking that I'm offering as part of this year-end process. I do something every year, and this year I thought it would be interesting to do it before the holidays, in part so I could take some time off, but more importantly, to get you thinking about things. In today's world, I know so many people are listening in after the fact. So if you just found your way here, this is one of 14 different resources. They're not all calls. Some are articles, some are worksheets, some are other resources to help you in your planning, doing, and tracking. And it was so important for me to get this book out before the end of the year because this really is the time of year where we are focusing on pausing, slowing it down a little bit so that we can have some great planning to set us up for success. If you've never met me before, please read a little bit more about me. My main company is called Potentials Realized. And for the last 5 years now, I have blogged daily on topics related to leadership and teamwork, specifically a lot of elements around virtual and remote teamwork and leadership. And you can find that over at potentialsrealized.com/Teams365 blog. It is a passion of mine. I started out working as a virtual and remote team leader myself many, many moons ago, dare I say in the early 1990s, working across the Americas, Central and South America, the Caribbean, and Europe. And most of my work entailed, supporting teams that were either in and across a country, which would take days to travel, or in my last role, supporting teams across 10 countries. Working, having systems, having support where we can actually really reach out to people virtually is such an additional skill set. And that led me to release actually not only this book, but in 2017, Effective Virtual Conversations. So there is a bit of an ecosystem in terms of PlanDoTrack. I want to take you through that today. And it's over 285 pages. It is an analog desk-sized planner, I like to say, and that's intentional. It's not digital because what we are seeing in today's world is the physical act of writing is helping with retention in ways that digital resourcing, calendaring is not. So in the workbook and planner, about 125 pages are workbook. That's self-guided, something that you can refer to. I'll take you into that in just a moment. And then the rest of it is undated planner. So if you're finding this in August, pick up a copy. It doesn't have an expiration date or a start date. You can actually use this, benefit from it in any 12-month period of the year. In the front section is a workbook, and really there's 4 main sections there. Business and leadership foundations as it relates to the virtual space. There's a section on primers and also a section on marketing or positioning, maximizing your message, really. And then part 4 is all about developing yourself. As virtual and remote professionals, we often need to lean into ourselves because we are in our own offices, we are working from the road, working from the sky, moving in and out of different contexts. And so our own personal development is really important, which is why I think the PlanDoTrack, I didn't want to just make it a journal, really wanted to make it a self-guided workbook along with a planner to help you. So I have a short video just to show, and I'll talk a little bit about the history, but here's some of the questions we explore at PlanDoTrack. Listen in. Hi, it's Jennifer Britton. Thanks for joining me for a look back at the first week of the 90 Days PlanDoTrack. Check it out at Instagram.com/CoachingBizBuilder. Have a copy of those workbook and planners at Amazon. Thanks for joining us. So what I wanted to do was just share with you a little bit about the seeds of this work. So it really stems out of about 3 decades of work, but earlier this year, I launched a series on Instagram called the 90 Days PlanDoTrack. It was about the same time that virtual remote professionals were getting their hands on Coaching Business Builder. And at that point, people were saying, I'd love some daily touch points, just like you do in the blog, but a little bit quicker. So those photos that you just saw in the video are actually outtakes of the daily photos that I post every day over at, currently they're at Coaching Biz Builder on Instagram. In the new year, we're going to transition that over. I'm going to do a 365 days series of photographs and daily prompts, because what we know in today's business environment is it's just too fast. Carving out even half an hour for a call like this at the end of the year is virtually impossible. So I hope you'll join me over at Instagram and have a daily question to get you thinking. So back to PlanDoTrack in its pure form in the workbook and planner. It's really geared for 3 different environments or 3 different types of people. First of all, the remote or virtual team leader. Maybe you are supporting a team that comes together once a year or once a week. For virtual remote teams today, it requires enhanced communication, skills around influence, and notice that I've put here that the book is for the virtual remote team leader, as well as the people you see in the middle, team members. So in today's remote workforce, we really need to equip our team members with just as many skills as the leaders have. And I think if you are managing a team, this is a great resource not only for you, but also for the team themselves. And I really want to specify, this is not a project management tool. We still want to leave that in the cloud. We still want to have that as a resource that everyone can tap into. But on that more meta level, we really need to be rolling down strategic initiatives, strategic imperatives into an annual work plan, into quarterly work plans, into monthly work plans. And that's where a lot of these planning tools come in. It's that midsection where we are not making a connection between strategy and day-to-day practical and tactical that I think are getting a lot of teams in trouble these days. When I say teams in trouble, it may not be that the impact is being seen right away, but it is the missteps, it is the conflict, it is the lack of communication and projects that really blow out very quickly, either because they're out of scope or they're out of focus. And that to me, as a consultant, as a coach, as an author, really speaks to the need for slowing it down a bit and spending some time going back to the basics. When I started out in the project management sphere 3 decades ago, and I was responsible for more than a decade on major projects, rebuilding countries post-national disaster, working across regions of the world on educational reform, looking at rolling out immunization campaigns to millions of people. These are mega projects. And at the end of the day, we still need to bring it back to the basics. Number one, we need time to do it. 2, we all need to be using a similar system. And 3, it only takes a few minutes every day to build out that checklist, even if that checklist changes dramatically day to day. When I worked in the global sector, I always used to say, I'd start my day with an A through Z. By the end of the day, I'd probably get it to like Z cubed, because you know what, my day would never go as planned. And so with the PlanDoTrack, it really is geared more for the virtual and remote team leader, team member, or even entrepreneur. Again, the work that we do, while there are technical specificities on a planning level, on a personal productivity planning level, it's the same tools. So with that, I want to take you just quickly inside both Coaching Biz Builder and PlanDoTrack. Very similar, different languaging, different slight focus. The first section for both books looks at business and virtual fundamentals. You'll look at things in PlanDoTrack around foundations for virtual teams, or in Coaching Business Builder around the foundations for building a sustainable and thriving coaching business. In part 2 of the primer, we really zoom into some success tips. What are those quick hacks and tips that you can be applying in your work right away? And then that leads us into the third section, which I'm reframing for both books, Marketing Essentials. Really, it is all about helping you get out, build relationships, be that voice, be that advocate for your own organization or the organization that you represent. As much as we like to hold them as distinct, I realize that all that I do today as an entrepreneur in marketing really was inculcated when I worked as a corporate employee and had to do a lot of work in advocacy, in representing an organization. So whether we call it positioning or marketing, Section 3 will give you tools to get clear on your message and to think about the different vehicles to get that message out. Whether you are blogging, whether you're going out and doing presentations, whether you are leading meetings. And that takes us then, after we've looked at the fundamentals, our success hacks, and then the essentials of communication, it also brings us into what I like to term the ecosystem. And that section, Section 4, gives you a chance to look at who you are. What are your values? What are your strengths? What are those things that you can lean into during times of change and challenge? And there's so much research now that points to the importance of knowing ourselves, being able to leverage those skills in times of uncertainty. And certainly for those of you who are working as virtual and remote employees, leaders, and or entrepreneurs, we know that that's every day. So that's a look inside sections 1 through 4. I'm going to take a few minutes taking you into the actual planner. And it really is, as I said, sort of that mid-level planner. We're not looking at strategy. We're not looking, it's not a daily calendaring system. It is more that mid-level. And as Drucker said, what doesn't get scheduled doesn't get done. What doesn't get measured doesn't get done. And I think this is incredibly important when we are usually, as virtual employees, interfacing, 1, with people we may never physically meet. 2, we may be working across geographic locations, different cultures, different languages, different times of day. And so it really is important that we have our own game plan that can help us navigate those waters. I've talked a little bit about why it's an analog planner, and really you've also heard my story now of how the workbook has evolved. What I've found fascinating since releasing Coaching Business Builder in the summertime is that people are really finding that it's a go-to resource. I use it myself. I should have brought that on camera with me, but I use it myself, and it's been amazing how I can just flip to some of the monthly tools. And again, I can add on, adjust, amend. It also helps me with my year-end review, because on a weekly basis, there's questions there to get you framing around what's working, what's not, what are the lessons learned, what's enabling, and what's derailing. And if I look at what has happened in our business in these last few months, its productivity has gone through the roof. I don't think it's just the planner, but I think intentionally by taking time every day, or at least every few days, to really reflect on what's working and what's not, it's helping to weed out a lot of things that maybe were nice to-dos but weren't necessarily the most important. So in the next few minutes, I want to take you through a couple of the different components of the planner section. Again, it's about 140 pages for those planning tools. There are 28 different business tools that you can be applying into your work right away. So as practical and tactical as it is, I, for many years, led strategic planning. And so there are some strategic issue mapping tools in there to help you get above sort of the immediate rabbit holes of your work. These are all very much self-guided, and it won't be as clear, but you can go to youtube.com to find other screenshots of just different sections. Again, there's space here for you to actually be writing things in. There's guided instructions on how to use these different elements. And you can really, carve out a weekend. You can pick a different page every day. As we move into 2019, there will be continued different supports. Right now, throughout the fall, I've been running a series of 4-hour virtual retreats. Those are geared to bring professionals together of all stripes and to work through certain sections of the book. My vision for 2019 is that we will be expanding that out. I do a series of monthly calls where we pick a different theme, but there are going to be some more guided tools for professionals to be leading you through the PlanDoTrack. So if you're one of those professionals that's a facilitator or a coach and you're interested in having a resource like this for your team, let me know. I'm in the process of writing a guide so that you can actually use this with your own employees. As I said, we've got 150 pages of planning resources, everything from the annual level to quarterly tools, monthly tools, and then I've also included 2 sections, one on content tools, because again, for many of us in the virtual space, we may be creatives, we may be project managers. Chances are, once you're leading a virtual team or working with people across the world, you're generating content. Content not only to draw attention for marketing, but content to be pushing out to your team. Maybe it is a blog that the team hosts. Maybe it is in Slack. Maybe it's like a series of Slack streams that you actually send out monthly tidbits, updates, newsletters. Content is king in today's world, and there's a whole section of tools in PlanDoTrack around content and some creative tools. As I mentioned earlier, they are undated, so you can start using them at any time in the year. Here's a shot of a couple of the annual tools. Again, annual trackers as well as annual vision. So we're in December now. I have really been enjoying in the last few months taking professionals of all stripes through the annual vision tools. You can see that on your far right. And I think having this roadmap out in front of us, what are our financial goals, our client goals, our health and personal lifestyle goals, as well as other projects or perhaps marketing, really key to have that in front of us. Some of you might not see the world in buckets like that. You might actually be wanting to map out your projects across quarters. So under the annual planning pages, there are about 6 different tools to give you different layers of really different layers of planning. We all operate in different ways. So again, I've been really fascinated by hearing some clients that have gone through this program with me in virtual retreats. Some gravitate to the tracker, whereas others gravitate to the buckets of goals. Now, once we move down through that level, and we're really only doing annual planning once a year or so. What is more important are the quarterly sets of focus. And something that I started in August, September of this year were quarterly virtual planning sessions. They're 50-minute sessions. I host them online. They're at a low price. But I've, again, had a lot of professionals join me, and we work through on a quarterly basis, what are your quarterly to-dos? What are the reflections you've had from the last quarter? And now let's get time in your schedule to outline, map out the different elements in the upcoming quarter in terms of projects, priorities, and other notes. It's not super complicated, and we don't want that in today's world, but we do need space and time. So if you're interested in anything like this, I do usually do a quarterly, what I call a quarterly planning hack, and it is a 50 to 60 minute virtual session. I host them once a quarter, usually around the solstice, so usually around the 21st of the month. And that is really giving you these tools to do your quarterly planning, future focus, as well as your quarterly reflections so that you're able to leverage your learning. And again, testimonials from people who have attended, really people love it because it gives them 1 hour, quick focus, and most importantly, reflection space to really think about what did work and what didn't work in the last quarter. So take note of the quarterly tools. Excuse me. As you see here, there's space for you to indicate, is this Q1, 2, 3, or 4? From that layer, we then flow into the monthly planning pages. And typically, on the last day of every month, unless it's a weekend, I will be hosting, or I do host, a 1 hour monthly planning session. There are 7 different sets of monthly tools, from blank calendars to 2 of my favorite that I've included here. The month in focus, which helps us zoom into what do we need to do each and every week, and that's filled out on the top line of our priorities. And then as we move through the week, we can also note things like what have our successes been, our enablers, our derailers, and lessons learned. Certainly, as this work has been rolling out across the fall, what I am hearing from clients is they really love the focus that it's chunked down into a week or even a month. I think for many of us, we're moving so fast, we haven't had time to really take stock except at the end of the year. Well, with the monthly planning hacks, it gives you 1 hour to really do that. And for those that like to get really granular, going back to this notion of what doesn't get monitored, doesn't get done, I have included 12 sets of monthly daily trackers. You will, if you go to the Instagram feed over at Coaching Biz Builder over on Instagram, you'll see some shaded daily trackers for my own business. And again, it doesn't take a lot of time. I'm the first to admit I don't do it on a daily basis. I do it about once a week, but it really gives me that bird's eye view of what's happening within my business. So I track a few personal things like health, time spent with family. I also track revenue issues. I track one-on-ones with important relationships. I track also design time in my own work, my writing time. And so there's space here on the tracker for you to really identify those things that are important. As part of the monthly book calls, virtual book calls, I'll be spending more time in 2019 just giving you snapshots of the trackers. But it's a really fun way to take some of the data we all accumulate from our Fitbits to our phones and put it in one place. So those are a couple of areas we've looked at: annual, quarterly, and also the monthly. And then at the heart of virtual work, as I say here, is communication. And so I've retained in PlanDoTrack the content planning tools. There are 12 monthly content trackers and 12 monthly, what I call 1 line a day. The 1 line a day, you can see part of it just behind in the bottom right-hand side of your screen. This is a tool where you could be just capturing 1 sentence a day around the highlights of your work. Or if you're a designer, it might be just a notation on how much time did you spend on different projects. I've heard of bloggers using it as the one place to capture what they're blogging on or what their new ideas are for content future forward. So the notion is it's just a place and a space for you to capture ideas, capture those content areas. And certainly if you are developing a service-based business, these are the pages that you may find that you are referring to regularly, whether you're blogging, you're speaking, you're doing live streams, you're presenting, or you're designing programs. The final section is one that I call the back pages, and something that I have used for many years as a coach, and I'm sure many of coaches that you work with use, is a 1-page plan. Just about at the end of the book, you will find the 1-page plan. And that is a space where anyone can identify their top 5 goals and the key things that you want to keep an eye on. This is one of those pages you can rip out or tab in your book so that you can keep, over the course of a year, your top ideas front and center. And really, that's what the idea is behind all of these, to visualize and even kinesthetically make your goals a little bit more relevant and outside of the phone. It doesn't mean that you can't do things on the phone or in your computer, but it's yet another anchor. And again, does not have to take a lot of time. So how to get involved, just in the last couple of minutes, as we move into 2019, I'll be continuing some of the programs that have started this year. I've mentioned already the 90 days Plan Do Track that started on Instagram over at Coaching Biz Builder on Instagram. And on September 21st, the start of fall, I started the 90 days Plan Do Track. The video that you saw at the start, those are some of the daily questions that go out on Instagram. I have actually kept a journal for the whole hack around my business. And it's been interesting. I was looking at it last night thinking, wow, there's a lot of like provocative questions that have come out on Instagram through the Plan Do Track that even for me as the creator of those questions have had some pretty significant insights for the business. So you can follow along. You don't have to keep a journal, but it is there as an option. As I mentioned, I think we're going to move to 365 days of Plan Do Track in the new year, because I really love the visual nature of this tool. Over on Instagram, you'll also find a couple of episodes on IGTV, short, less than 10-minute episodes. Now, the second area, for those that want a little bit more focus, I will be continuing to run the Plan Do Track virtual retreat programs. And those really create a 4-hour pause for reflection, planning, and action. And those elements are geared, most people will follow it with a major project they have on the go. So we spend a couple of hours looking at what are the plans. You get to use many of the tools in the workbook. And then we also give you some space over the course of an hour to get things in action, right? In today's hyper frenetic world, we don't get into action, but you do get to get into action with this virtual retreat. And then the last hour is spent helping you track what is important to you. So I first launched these a few months ago, and as I've taken dozens of people through them, it's really been fascinating. From business owners to leaders, people are enjoying just the condensed focus. It helps them get focused on what's important. As we move to year end, some people have brought their year end business planning, so it certainly has worked along those veins as well. I have one more left, December 20th, next week, Thursday afternoon between 1 and 5 p.m. Eastern. And then again, they will start up probably one a month for the first part of the year. The first one of 2019 is Tuesday, January 8th from 1 to 5 p.m. So more on that, you can go to PlanDoTrack.com. Here's what a couple of people have said. Amy L., this course was far more helpful than I'd hoped for. I work well with deadlines, and this created the illusion of a deadline for me. It was so empowering. I've already blocked off 4-hour chunks of time throughout the week to work on other projects. I'm looking forward to doing this again with Jennifer, though. I think the accountability is a huge part of it, and that's something I can't do on my own. And that really is the whole background. I think Amy gives voice to why I felt that it was so important to sort of deviate from my denser business books that I'm typically writing to something that's very practical and tactical. While we can think about it, while we can strategize about it ourselves, so useful not only to get it on paper, but also to come together as a community. Jen C., who recently went through a program with me, said, taking these 4 hours for myself was such a gift. Everyone knew I was committed to this and gave me the space to work hard on putting my calendar back together after what looked like an explosion in my life. I feel so much more at peace and able to keep all those plates spinning easier. So whether it's on the personal level or the business level, do consider joining me for an upcoming Plan Do Track virtual retreat. It's time well spent, it's money well spent to really give you that space and place to plan and get into some action. As I mentioned, and you'll see me back here on Monday, I'll be doing another call. I'd originally thought that I'd do a walkthrough of PlanDoTrack, but we've sort of done that today. But you will see me here on Monday at 11 a.m. for a short 30-minute call as part of the PlanDoTrack 14 Days of Year-End events. There are a couple more calls scheduled for next week, including 5 tools for productivity for 2019 on Thursday, and a wrap-up celebration next Friday. Note the times, these may change a little. It's that fluid time of year where a lot of my coaching clients really want to meet, but I'm going to try as best as can not to be changing this schedule too much. Anything that is not shaded are actually posts that you can read at any time over at the Teams 365 blog. And as we step into year 6 of blogging, yes, we are going to be continuing to focus in on several of the issues here around planning, productivity, team management. So all team and leadership stuff will remain at potentialsrealized.com. That's where you can find the Teams 365 blog. As we move out and beyond into 2019, there will be a weekly personal productivity, team productivity post over at PlanDoTrack. That's how the different legs of the business will be arcing in the new year. So longer term supports, again, a variety of different types of programs. If you're an entrepreneur, do a lot of coaching, specifically on Fridays through the Coaching Biz Growth Lab. We meet bi-weekly, usually the first and third Fridays of every month between 3 and 4 p.m. Eastern. Fun group, it's all about coaching you on your business issues, tactical, strategic, operational, or other. For virtual leaders and remote team members, continue to do a lot of customized training with and in partnership with organizations, but there's also the Teams 365 Leadership Series. Those are virtual and on-demand and in-house courses that can be delivered and have been delivered over the last 6-7 years, as well as a Teams 365 Leadership Lab. Similar to my other labs, those meet bi-weekly. Those are always the second and fourth Fridays of the month. And those are going to be scheduled a little bit earlier in 2019. So it's 7 to 7:45 a.m. Eastern for virtual remote team leaders and members, which actually seems to be a really good time for people to get together. Lots that we've covered today. Again, as I mentioned, I'm back on Monday, and you can take a closer look with the PlanDoTrack. I'll bring in some additional tools. We also will come together next Thursday for 5 productivity tools and then a review of the days next Friday. So please connect. I've put in the most important probably links here for you. PlanDoTrack.com, that is now live. Instagram, everything is still over at Coaching Biz Builder. And stay in touch. In our feed at YouTube, all of these are going to be uploaded, and you can find a new playlist simply called PlanDoTrack. So with that, I want to say thank you. This is a great resource for you, your team, your loved ones. Head on over to Amazon and pick up a copy. And hope that you'll join me for our next recording. Thanks, and have a great weekend, everyone. Enjoy.